On April 10, 1993, Juan Martin Temsilla Chris Hani met his tragic end when an assassin associated with the far-right white extremist group, the AWB, fatally shot him in the driveway of his residence in a Johannesburg suburb, South Africa. The motive behind this assassination was unmistakably clear: it aimed to strike at the heart of the ANC and SACP alliance. Through this act, the right wing sought to sabotage the ongoing negotiations aimed at ushering in democracy in South Africa and, most crucially, to turn back the clock on the progress made against apartheid. In the wake of this assassination, militant youth in South Africa, fueled by anger and outrage over the murder of their hero, took to the streets, demanding retribution and, predictably, threatening to engage in widespread violence and unrest throughout the country. The reason for this reaction was that Chris Hani was unequivocally the most popular black politician in South Africa after ANC President Nelson Mandela himself. Described as charming, passionate, and charismatic, Chris Hani's dedication to the fight for freedom shone brightly in the bleak landscape of apartheid-era South Africa. His assassination left an indelible mark on his country's journey away from apartheid. Born Juan Martin Temsilla Hani in the rural village of Sabali in the Trofibava region of the former Transkei, which is now part of the Eastern Cape province of South Africa, he was the fifth of 6 children born to Gilbert and Mary Hani. Remarkably, 3 of the 6 siblings survived infancy, and young Chris was one of them. He adopted the name Chris later in life, and it was, in fact, his brother's real name. Chris's introduction to the injustices of apartheid came early in life when his father had to leave their rural home to find work in urban areas of South Africa. His father worked as a migrant laborer in the Transvaal mines, sending back whatever money he could to support the family in Transkei. His mother worked on a subsistence farm to supplement the family's income. This experience profoundly influenced the young Chris, who became acutely aware of his mother's struggles to run the household. Like other young men of his age, Chris tended to livestock until he reached school age. At that point, he enrolled in a Catholic school, where he developed a love for Latin. Chris and his siblings would walk approximately 25 kilometers to school every weekday, and they made the same journey to church on Sundays. Despite the challenges, Chris was a devout Catholic and became an altar boy at the age of 8. He aspired to become a priest, but his father did not grant permission for him to enter the seminary. Instead, he moved Chris to a non-denominational school, Matanzima Secondary School in Thala, Transkei. At the age of 11, Chris Hani and other black students were affected by the introduction of the South African government's Black Education Act of 1953, which formalized the segregation of black schooling and laid the groundwork for the Bantu education system. At such a young age, Chris became aware of the limitations that the apartheid system imposed on his future. The following year, in 1954, Chris, along with some of his school teachers who were active in the Unity movement, lost their jobs after protesting against the introduction of Bantu education. This experience further fueled Chris's political consciousness and awareness. In 1956, at the onset of the treason trial, in which 156 people, including Nelson Mandela, were arrested and accused of treason in South Africa, Chris Hani joined the African National Congress, ANC. His father, Gilbert, was already a member of this organization. In 1957, Chris joined the ANC Youth League. Simultaneously, on the educational front, Chris had moved to Lovedale Institute in the Eastern Cape in 1958. From there, he proceeded to the University of Fort Hare in 1959. While at Fort Hare, Chris Hani's political ideas developed further. Fort Hare was known for its liberal environment, where Chris was exposed to Marxist ideas and a critical understanding of the racist capitalist system that he came to despise. This period marked a deepening of his non-racial perspective. During his time at Fort Hare, Chris Hani developed a fascination with Latin studies and English literature. His study of literature deepened his aversion to all forms of oppression, persecution, and obscurantism. Literary works that portrayed the actions of tyrants made him harbor a profound dislike for tyranny and institutionalized oppression. While at Fort Hare, Chris Hani also actively participated in campus protests against the takeover of the university by the Department of Bantu Education. He left Fort Hare in 1961 and graduated in 1962 from Rhodes University in Grahamstown, now known as Makanda, earning a Bachelor of Arts degree in Latin and English. Chris Hani relocated to Cape Town and worked as an article clerk at the Schaefer and Shefaligo firm between 1962 and 1963. However, he did not complete his articles during this period. While in the Western Cape, Chris Hani participated in protests against the Department of Bantu Education and came into contact with the South African Congress of Trade Unions. This association heightened his awareness of the workers' struggle and drew him further into politics. Chris Hani's uncle had been involved in the Communist Party of South Africa, an organization established in 1921 but dissolved due to the Suppression of Communism Act of 1950. Former members then operated secretly as the underground South African Communist Party, SACP, from 1953, aiming to end apartheid. However, the SACP's relationship with the ANC was marked by mutual suspicion. The ANC leaders, including Nelson Mandela and Walter Sisulu, opposed the SACP because of differences in their ideologies. While the SACP leaned towards Marxism, the ANC sought racial equality within democratic and capitalist principles. In 1960, when the ANC was banned, the two groups became underground allies in the fight against apartheid. Chris Hani's frustration with apartheid and the influence of leaders like Govan Mbeki, Brown Fisher, J.B. Marks, Moses Kotane, and Ray Simmons led him to join the underground SACP in 1961 and subsequently the military wing of the ANC, MK, in 1962. He emerged as one of the young lions who believed that ideological differences should be resolved once a new South African government promoting racial equality was established. Chris Hani continued to climb the political ladder, becoming a member of the MK's Western Cape leadership, known as the Committee of Seven. During this time, he faced police confrontations, arrests, and imprisonment, all due to his activism against apartheid. In 1967, he left South Africa for the Soviet Union to receive military training and later returned to Africa, actively participating in the Rhodesian Bush War as a political commissar in the Zimbabwean People's Revolutionary Army, ZIPRA. His imprisonment led to criticism of the ANC's leadership for failing to assist him, culminating in the Hani Memorandum, which highlighted issues like careerism and corruption within the ANC. This memorandum played a significant role in the Morogoro Conference of 1969, where the ANC opened its membership to non-Africans and adopted crucial strategies and tactics. In 1974, Chris Hani re-entered South Africa to establish an underground ANC infrastructure in the Western Cape. He faced multiple assassination attempts but continued his efforts. He later moved to Lesotho, organizing MK units for guerrilla operations in South Africa. In 1990, following Nelson Mandela's release and the ANC's legalization, Chris Hani returned to South Africa, joining the ANC's National Executive Committee and becoming the Chief of Staff of the MK in 1987. He also rose to senior membership in the SACP. Chris Hani immediately embarked on tireless efforts, traveling across South Africa to educate people about the ongoing political developments, and to instill socialist consciousness among them. He soon emerged as a charismatic and beloved speaker in the townships, second perhaps only to Nelson Mandela in terms of popularity. He played a pivotal role in the first ever talks between the ANC and the apartheid government in May 1990, and he agreed with other ANC leaders to suspend armed resistance in the interest of achieving a peaceful accord. However, Chris Hani never abandoned his militant ideals. At one point, he even threatened to withdraw the ANC from negotiations, and potentially resume armed struggle if the apartheid government did not take significant steps like abolishing security laws, dismantling right-wing security groups, and dismissing defense and police ministers. Around this time, Chris Hani developed a close association with Joe Slovo, the General Secretary of the SACP. Both were seen as formidable figures, feared by South Africa's extreme right, including the AWB, Afrikaner Resistance Movement, and the Conservative Party. In 1991, when Joe Slovo announced his battle with cancer, Chris Hani took over as the General Secretary of the SACP in 1992, stepping down as the Chief of Staff of the MK to focus more on the SACP's organization. His ascent was viewed as reinforcing the strong ties between the Communists and the ANC. However, as the ANC and South African Communist Party had ideological differences, especially regarding collective ownership and private property, it was expected that these differences might surface as a new constitution and a new South Africa emerged. Chris Hani recognized the need to consolidate his organization's position within the Congress Alliance to advocate for the specific interests of workers and prisoners in the post-apartheid era. He campaigned for the SACP across South Africa, gaining a significant following, particularly among the youth, who had no direct experience of the pre-apartheid era and less commitment to the moderate ideals of the ANC. Unfortunately, Chris Hani's growing popularity and influence also attracted dangerous enemies. He was assassinated on April 10, 1993, by Janusz Wallace, an anti-communist Polish refugee with links to the AWB, and Clive Derby Lewis, a Conservative Party MP who supplied the gun used in the assassination. This tragic event led to a surge in gun sales and increased racial tensions in South Africa. Chris Hani's assassination had a profound impact on South Africa, and his funeral drew thousands of mourners. It further emphasized the need for peaceful negotiations, eventually leading to South Africa's first democratic elections in 1994, in which the ANC, under Nelson Mandela's leadership, won a significant victory. Chris Hani's life remains a testament to his unwavering commitment to freedom, equality, and basic rights for all South Africans during the struggle against apartheid.